What size are we going?
Let's say, oh man, eyeball size.
That was a wild one.
Put that in the edit, eyeball size. Hi, I'm Sue Lee. I'm here to teach you about meatballs. You'll learn different techniques and different methods and know that there really is no wrong way to make a meatball as long as it's very delicious, and then you'll have the basics down. I really wanted to talk about meatballs. I think mainly because it's my own learning journey. There really is no one perfect way to make it, and in every culture there are different methods of making a meatball. So let's talk about the anatomy of a meatball. It's some kind of meat or a meat substitute, some seasoning, and something that binds it all together. That binder can be like an egg, breadcrumbs, or really just the meat itself. And then there's different cooking techniques. Today you're gonna see a seared Italian meatball, and it's then simmered in a sauce. And then I'm gonna show you how to make a chicken kofta. And then you're gonna see a lion's head, which is a very traditional Chinese dish where you cover it with cabbage. Let's keep talking about meatballs and make some recipes. Yeah? I think an Italian meatball, the way I was taught to make it, it has a very delicate texture. You don't want to overmix it. You want the texture to be a little bit loose on the inside, and it's a bit more rustic. I had a very, very strong impression of an Italian meatball, and that is a Sparrow Italian meatball. I grew up in the 90s, and I grew up in Dallas. Every Saturday or Sunday when we went to the Galleria, we would go to Sparrow's and get the meatballs. And I haven't had it in a very long time. Oh my God. You know, we talked about this, but I didn't actually think it would happen. I don't remember it looking like this. I don't actually remember what it looked like, but I remember the taste of it. And it was so salty, so flavorful. And I was like, wow, this is America. We just immigrated. We were like, this is America. And it was I was like, what? Okay, let's eat it. Let's try it. Obviously, the way they mix it is with the machine, okay? We can't make so many Sparrow meatballs, but you do see seasoning. My memory was a really tight texture, but when I'm eating this now, the texture of it, the look of it is very tight, but when you're eating it, it's very loose, very gentle. It's delightful. So let's just combine everything but the meat in the bowl, whisk it all together. Ricotta adds a milkiness, but without adding milk, which makes it too loose. You know, if we're thinking about the Italian meatball, you don't want to overwork the mixture. So first I incorporate the seasoning and the cheeses and the egg all together. I whisk it together so that I can evenly distribute the flavors. So that when I add the meat, I'm not overworking the meat texture so that then it won't be a tight, bouncy texture for a meatball. When you mix meat together, you sort of the fat and the moisture in the meat forms an emulsification. But that's not what we want here. We don't want that to create that emulsification. We want the loose texture because that's how rustic it should be. Here we have ground pork and some ground beef. A lot of times, you know, when you buy meat from the grocery store, it can feel so tight that you have to work the meat to make it loose again. And we don't want to do that. So when you buy your ground beef and your ground pork, look for something that's fattier. And this pork is from a butcher, which is so nice and loose and has a bit more fat to it. And I love the way it looks. If you're gonna make a meatball, just go for it. Just go for it and buy the fattier meat. A very common combination is 80-20. But if you're able to find something that is 70-30, meaning 70% lean, 30% fat, you should get it. It'll make a very, very I don't want to sound cheesy, like unctuous. Let's not say unctuous. It's just like a very delicious meatball. You want the fat. Fat is delicious. But here we're gonna use 80-20. If the meat comes like this, then you can break it up with your hand. Why the beef pork combo? I made it with all beef because I'm like, oh, let me make it easy for everybody. But it felt really it just felt kind of bland. And I think pork just adds a little gaminess. I'm first just gonna break up the meat with a spatula. And then I'll use my hands to do the rest. The method I'm using is I'm folding it onto itself. It's sort of like, when you hear people talk about folding batter, because you don't want to overmix it, that's sort of the idea. And then I'm pressing it down with my fingers like this. That's it. That was what, 30 seconds? But this is it. And then now we're gonna form meatballs. I'm gonna wash my hands and start. This is something that I learned watching my family cook. I take a scoop, about 1/4 cup, and I put it against the palm of my hand, and I scrape it to form the meatball. And I just keep doing that.
What would you call the size you're going for with this one?
Let's call it a golf ball size. Is it?
Yeah.
Ping pong ball. First, we're gonna make the sauce. As you're searing your meatball, you can then transfer them directly into the sauce. I really love using passata. Passata is just tomato that's been very finely pureed. But if you're not able to find tomato passata, you can just buy cans of crushed tomato. That's also fine. Olive oil and a little garlic. We're gonna sear the meatball, and then once you add it to the sauce and let it stew in the sauce for a bit, it will also season the tomato sauce. And the garlic can just be once it's fragrant. You don't need to have it be browning. Okay, so here we're actually using a can of crushed tomatoes. The cue here for passata is because it's so smooth, it's a little more liquidy, but a crushed tomato is gonna have a tighter texture, so it's gonna look thicker. Let's say once the sauce is sort of bubbling along the edges, you can just turn the heat off. And because this is crushed tomato, it's gonna just look like it has a thicker texture, and that's totally okay. But if you are to use passata, it'll have a looser texture that's a little more sauce-like. Now let's sear the meatballs, yeah? Yes, so I'm not gonna overcrowd the pan. I sort of have made the center open for us so that it's easier for me to flip the meatballs. There's a little more room. And it's basically half of the meatballs. All we're gonna do is just create a nice sear on the outside. You don't need to cook this all the way through, because what will end up happening if you do cook it all the way through is all the delicious fat that is in the meatball mixture, even the cheese and the ricotta, all that moisture as well will then leach out. What you want to do is sort of create a nice seal on the outside of the meatball, and then transfer it into the sauce and have it keep cooking in the sauce so that all that delicious flavor is in there together. I'm just gonna move the pan around for the different hot spots. It's a good reminder to do that at home. Oh, this is a really nice sear. Delightful. Because I personally love a really golden sear texture on the outside of the meatball, I'm just trying to look for spots that are just a little light, but I'm also a little afraid that all the good flavors are gonna leach out, so I'm gonna start to transfer them. So now the second round, the pan is hotter, so the sear is going faster. You just need to move a little faster. See, I was a little too early on this, and there's a bit that's falling off. That's okay. Okay, so let's just simmer the sauce a little bit. They're pretty delicate, actually. They will fall apart. Here, the sauce is just a little thicker. In this instance, I would put a lid on it and let it simmer. The meatballs have been simmering, and they're ready. And you can see some of the juices from the meatballs are now in the sauce. I like it with a little cheese. Look at this fancy thing of olive oil. I love it. More fat. I think fat is delicious. Let's eat it. First, let's cut it and see what it looks like in comparison to a Sbarro meatball. It's very delicate, tender, but it's not as homogeneous. It's nice and loose. It's very good. I think this is a really delicious meatball. I think like the old me would be like, wow, I did a really good job. And it tastes similar to a Sbarro meatball. It's classic. Now we're gonna make the chicken kofta with yogurt sauce. This is a chicken meatball. And you'll see like I'm not using breadcrumbs to make it come together into a ball. To help it maintain a shape, we're gonna bake it in the oven. Ground chicken. Ground chicken is very lean, kind of watery. I'll show you how to like put it all together. And here you'll see like I'm just gonna mix it all together. I'm not trying to like mix the seasoning together first or anything because I'm really gonna make this mixture like bind in the bowl. I'm not too concerned about a loose texture. Okay, I have about a quarter cup of each of the mint, cilantro, and parsley. I added a lot of herbs in here because I find that chicken is so mild. You kind of want like to add a lot of flavor to it. Now I'm not shy about really mixing the meat together. Chicken just doesn't have a lot of fat, so you want whatever little fat that there is in there and the water to create the emulsification. Now you see how it's like sort of like going around the bowl, it's sticking to the bowl, totally fine. First, let's oil the sheet pan. I'm gonna line up with parchment. You know, I was saying using water, but now that I have oil on my hands, I'm just rub it into the palm. I'm gonna dip this spoon in some water, and like a couple tablespoon measure is good. So see how like the oil helps, but also the spoon helps. We're gonna form these meatballs. So here you see how helpful it is to have the spoon in the palm of your hand to help you form these balls. You know, chicken is such a loose, it's just such a different meat. There's so little fat in it. So this helps you just like drop it on there. And I know they're not super perfect, but that's okay. So now we're gonna bake the chicken meatballs in the oven at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. While the chicken meatballs are baking, let's make the yogurt sauce. Greek yogurt, some lemon juice, salt, pepper, and we'll just whisk it together. That's it. The chicken meatball has maintained the shape. It's because we put it in the oven, we baked it, so no movement, you know? And there's like a little bit of a golden brown like crust on the outside. So I would like put a smear of this down. And I like to serve it with a little lemon wedge. The way I mixed it, it was like thoroughly mixed. So you see the texture is a little tighter. Even though I really thoroughly mixed it, you would think this meatball is gonna be like dense and heavy and bouncy, but it's actually really loose and like and tender. I think it's the addition of the herbs. It just balances everything out. So it's a very traditional Chinese meatball stew. I think traditionally they make it into this like big meatball that's like supposed to be like the head of a lion, you know? Size so big that it's like the head of a lion. But we're gonna make like a little smaller version. And this is like a dish that, you know, you tend to sometimes like you get during Chinese New Year celebration. It's just like very much a home cooking, like mom made this. Okay, let's go. So here we have 1 pound of ground pork. You also add silken tofu. Here's about a cup of silken tofu. You want to make sure it's not too wet. And the seasoning are scallions, finely chopped ginger, salt, sesame oil, ground white pepper, and an egg. Have you noticed there's an egg in every recipe? It helps like with the fat, it adds a little fat and like binds it together. It's sort of like the glue. So now you're gonna see, I'm gonna mix this similar to how I mix the chicken meatball. So don't be shy about mixing this. You can smell the ginger, the white pepper, the scallions. Sort of like when you mix butter and sugar together. It has that texture. I think it's ready. You see how it's like, it kind of holds the shape of the spatula, like the peaks. So now we've mixed our meatball mixture. I'm just gonna set this aside. So we're gonna make a little slurry with some soy sauce, a tablespoon of water, and cornstarch. It helps to create this like little crust around it almost, and just a little more flavor. And I'm gonna add the remaining bit of it into the stew too, to help give the stew a little texture, a little body in the pot. Same technique where you grab a spoonful of it in your palm.
What size?
Let's say this is about half a cup. And it's gonna be really delicate, don't worry. Use your hands, and then you pick it back up. So it smells so good. So the cornstarch and the soy sauce might make it a little hard. If you're using a pan that isn't hot enough, might make it so the meatballs stick to the pan a little bit. So make sure your oil and your pan are hot enough. Don't make the mistake I made. So it's not perfect there. We don't have to add that in the edit either. I can just be perfect all around all the time. So they're not cooked on the inside. They're still very raw. Okay, so now that we've seared the meatballs, I've transferred them onto a plate. I'm gonna keep using this pot because all the delicious flavors from the sear are still in this pot. I took a head of cabbage, Napa cabbage specifically. So I'm just gonna layer the leaves in here. There's no like true perfect method. You kind of wanna just make a nest, like a nice cabbage nest for the lion's head meatballs. I'm just gonna let it hang out. It's kind of, you'll see that the cabbage leaves will break down. Right now it looks like it's very full, but don't worry, it'll all break down. Save the larger outer leaves to cover it like this. Cup of water to the slurry that I had earlier. I'm gonna bring it to a boil and then lower the heat to a simmer. Okay, so it's come to a boil. You can see when you lift the lid, you see there's steam, and I can also hear it. I heard it, that's when I knew it's come to a boil. You just wanna lower the heat, keep the lid back on, and then you're gonna simmer this for about 30 minutes. And by then you'll see it's become like a really delicious stew. The meatballs are definitely cooked. What we're really looking for is that the cabbage has broken down and gotten smaller and soft. When I was a kid, this was my favorite part, the broth and the cabbage. The cross-section of meatball, you can see that the texture is also pretty close. It's so good. It's a little bouncy. So the texture of this meatball is sort of like, I would say QQ, which is like a way, like in Taiwan, they describe like a bouncy texture. It's very good. And then let's try with a little bit of the cabbage. Oh, it honestly tastes like home. It's really delicious. From the Italian meatball to the chicken meatball to this lion's head, it all tastes like home cooking. It's a sign of a good meatball recipe. make all different kinds of meatballs, but if you need any references, come back to these 3 recipes as your base. Please feel free to explore and feel free to have fun with it. If you want any more meatball recipes, please go to New York Times Cooking and you will find so many meatball recipes.